What happens when a single kiss in a stairwell destroys everything you thought you controlled? How did I end up staring at divorce papers, locked out and pregnant, with everyone believing my husband is the one to blame? The truth is, the real story began the night I received those legal documents on my car windshield. My name is Ianthe Durbin, and I'm 31 years old. I work as an office administrator at a dental clinic, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had my life perfectly under control. I lived in a decent 2-bedroom apartment with my husband Graham and our 6-year-old daughter Mila. Graham is 34, works in IT, and has always been the steady, reliable type. Maybe too steady, if you ask me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from that first moment when everything changed. The stairwell of our apartment building always smelled like industrial cleaner and something vaguely musty. I never paid much attention to it until that Tuesday evening in March when Riley Tran first kissed me there. Riley was 27, with dark hair that always looked perfectly messy and a smile that made my stomach flutter in ways I hadn't felt in years. He delivered groceries from the local warehouse, and I'd been ordering more and more frequently just to see him. Graham never questioned it. He was always buried in his laptop anyway, working on some project or another. "You know," Riley said that evening, setting down the bags of groceries I definitely didn't need, "I've been looking forward to this delivery all day." I felt my cheeks flush. "Really? It's just groceries." "It's not about the groceries, Ianthe." The way he said my name made my heart skip. "It's about seeing you." I should have picked up those bags and walked straight to my apartment. I should have thought about Graham sitting in our living room, probably wondering why I was taking so long. I should have thought about Mila, doing her homework at the kitchen table. Instead, I stepped closer to Riley. "My husband doesn't even notice when I get my hair done," I heard myself saying. "He just sits there, staring at his computer screen, acting like I don't exist." It wasn't entirely true. Graham had complimented my hair just last week. But in that moment, with Riley's eyes focused entirely on me, it felt true enough. "That's his loss," Riley said softly, reaching up to touch a strand of my hair. "You're beautiful, Ianthe. You deserve someone who sees that." When he leaned in, I didn't pull away. His lips were warm and soft, and for those few seconds, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months, maybe years. "I should go," I whispered when we broke apart, but I didn't move. "Text me," Riley said, pressing a piece of paper into my hand. "I mean it." I clutched his number as I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding. Graham was exactly where I'd expected him to be, on the couch with his laptop, barely looking up when I walked in with the groceries. "You're late," he said, not accusingly, just stating a fact. "Dinner's getting cold." "Sorry, the delivery took longer than expected." The lie came so easily it surprised me. As I put away the groceries, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Can't stop thinking about you." I quickly deleted it, but my hands were shaking. Graham was still on the couch, but now he was looking at me with a strange expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine," I said quickly. "Just tired." But as I served dinner and listened to Mila chatter about her day at school, all I could think about was Riley's kiss and the way he'd looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. Later that night, after Mila was asleep and Graham was back to his laptop, I saved Riley's number in my phone under the name R. Grocery. Then I typed a message. I keep thinking about it too. I deleted it without sending, but I knew I would text him eventually. The damage was already done. Sunday dinners at my mother's house had always been a family tradition. Lila Tran, yes, she shared Riley's last name, though they weren't related, had been hosting these gatherings for as long as I could remember. My sister Colette usually came with her latest boyfriend, and Graham's father Mark joined us when he was in town. 3 weeks after the stairwell incident, I was dreading the dinner more than usual. Graham had been distant lately, asking subtle questions about my schedule, and why I'd been ordering so many groceries. I needed my family's support, and I knew exactly how to get it. "Graham's been so controlling lately," I announced over my mother's pot roast, making sure my voice carried just the right note of exhaustion. "He watches my every move, questions everything I do. I feel like I'm living with a jailer." My mother immediately set down her fork, her face creasing with concern. "Oh, honey, that's not right. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership." I tried to talk to him about it, but he just shuts down, I continued, glancing at Graham, who was cutting his meat with deliberate precision. "He never helps around the house, never notices when I make an effort. I'm starting to feel invisible in my own marriage." Colette laughed, shaking her head. "Men, right? They think just bringing home a paycheck is enough." Graham's father, Mark, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He'd always been the quiet type, but I could see him watching Graham with concern. "Have you tried couples therapy?" my mother asked. "Sometimes men need a professional to tell them what their wives have been saying all along." "I've suggested it," I lied smoothly, "but Graham thinks there's nothing wrong. He thinks I'm being dramatic." Graham finally looked up from his plate. "I never said that, Ianthe." "See?" I gestured toward him. "This is what I mean. He makes me feel like I'm crazy for having feelings." The table fell silent. Mila, who had been coloring in her activity book, looked up with wide, confused eyes. "Daddy, are you mean to Mommy?" she asked in a small voice. Graham's face went pale. "No, sweetheart. Mommy and I just have different ways of seeing things sometimes." "Don't put her in the middle of this," I snapped, though I was the one who'd started the conversation in front of her. Graham stood up abruptly. "I think I should go. Thank you for dinner, Lila." As he gathered his jacket, my mother reached over and squeezed my hand. "You don't have to put up with this, honey. You deserve better." After Graham left, the conversation turned to how difficult men could be, how they never appreciated what they had. I soaked up every word of support, feeling vindicated. But under the table, I was texting Riley. "Family dinner from hell. Need to see you." His response was immediate. "My place in an hour." I glanced up to see Colette looking at me strangely. Had she seen my phone screen? "Who are you texting?" she asked casually. "Just a friend from work," I said, quickly putting my phone away. "Girl stuff." But I caught the look that passed between Colette and Mark, and for the first time, I wondered if my performance hadn't been as convincing as I'd thought. The dental clinic where I worked was perfect for conducting a secret affair. Dr. Peterson rarely paid attention to what happened at the front desk, and my co-workers were too busy with their own drama to notice mine. Riley started picking me up during my lunch breaks. We'd drive to the warehouse where he worked, park behind the loading dock and talk. At least, that's what I told myself we were doing. "You seem different," Riley said one afternoon, running his fingers through my hair as we sat in his van. "Happier." "I feel different," I admitted, like I'm finally remembering who I am outside of being Graham's wife and Mila's mother. It was true in a way. With Riley, I felt young and desirable again. He listened when I talked, laughed at my jokes, made me feel like the center of the universe. "He doesn't deserve you," Riley said, and I let myself believe it. The guilt was there, of course, but I pushed it down. Graham and I had been growing apart for months, maybe years. This thing with Riley was just helping me realize what I'd been missing. "I feel trapped," I told Riley during another lunch break, "like I'm living someone else's life." "You don't have to be trapped forever," he said, kissing my neck. "You have choices." But at home, Graham was becoming increasingly suspicious. He'd started asking pointed questions about my schedule, checking the mileage on my car, even glancing at my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. "You've been different lately," he said one evening, while we were cleaning up after dinner. "Distant." "I'm not distant," I replied, scrubbing a plate harder than necessary. "I'm just tired of the same routine every day." "Is there something you want to talk about?" The concern in his voice almost broke me. For a moment, I considered telling him everything, coming clean and trying to work things out. But then my phone buzzed with a text from Riley. and the moment passed. "You're being paranoid," I said instead. "Not everything is about you, Graham." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I never said it was. The next day at work, my coworker Janet mentioned seeing me getting into a delivery van during lunch. "New boyfriend?" she teased, not knowing how close to the truth she was. "Just a friend giving me a ride," I said quickly. My car was making a weird noise. But Janet's comment made me realize how risky I was being. I started varying my routine, meeting Riley at different times and places. The secrecy was exhausting, but it was also thrilling. Meanwhile, my mother called almost daily to check on me and offer support in my difficult marriage. Mark, Graham's father, had started coming by the apartment more often, ostensibly to see Mila, but clearly keeping an eye on things. "Your husband seems like a good man," he said to me one evening, while Graham was helping Mila with her homework. "Appearances can be deceiving," I replied coolly. Mark studied me for a long moment. "Yes," he said finally, "they certainly can." That weekend, Graham asked me a simple question that chilled me to the bone. "Ianthe, are you happy?" I was loading the dishwasher, and I stopped mid-motion. The honest answer was complicated. I was happy with Riley, miserable with the deception, confused about what I wanted. Instead, I scoffed. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind that deserves an honest answer." I turned to face him, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Not anger or hurt, but a kind of sad resignation. "I'm fine, Graham. Stop overanalyzing everything." He nodded slowly, but I could tell he didn't believe me. The next day, Colette called to tell me she'd seen Graham entering a law office downtown. "Why would he be seeing a lawyer?" she asked. "Probably work stuff," I said, but my stomach was churning. You know how his company is always dealing with contracts and patents. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about work. Graham was planning something, and I had no idea what. The confrontation I'd been dreading finally came on a Thursday evening in May. Graham had been quieter than usual all week, watching me with those careful, calculating eyes that made me feel like a specimen under a microscope. Mila was at a sleepover, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous. Graham had specifically suggested she spend the night at her friend's house, which wasn't like him. "We need to talk," he said as soon as I walked through the door from work. My heart started pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. "About what?" "About us. About what's been happening." I set down my purse and faced him, crossing my arms defensively. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it that I'd never heard before. "You've been different for months, Ianthe. Secretive, hostile. You come home late, you're always on your phone, you look at me like I'm the enemy." "Maybe because you've been acting like one," I shot back, questioning everything I do, checking up on me, making me feel like a prisoner in my own home. "I've been trying to understand what's happening to my wife." "Your wife?" I laughed bitterly. "When's the last time you treated me like your wife? When's the last time you really looked at me, talked to me about something other than bills and schedules and Mila's school events?" Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously calm. "When's the last time you gave me a chance to?" The question caught me off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know more than you think I do, Ianthe." My blood ran cold. "Know about what?" "About the grocery deliveries, about your extended lunch breaks, about the text messages you delete as soon as you read them." I felt cornered, and when I feel cornered, I attack. "So you have been spying on me. I knew it. I've been trying to save my marriage. By violating my privacy, by treating me like a criminal, by trying to understand why my wife is having an affair." The words hung in the air between us like a bomb that had just exploded. I opened my mouth to deny it, but Graham held up a hand. "Don't," he said quietly. "Please don't insult both of us by lying." "It's not what you think," I said finally. "Nothing really happened. It It was just someone who made me feel appreciated for once. Just someone? Graham's composure cracked slightly. Just someone who's been picking you up from work. Just someone you've been meeting during your lunch breaks. Just someone you've been texting at all hours. How do you... I stopped myself, realizing I was essentially confessing. I told you, I know more than you think. The fight went out of me suddenly, replaced by a desperate need to make him understand. Graham, I never meant for this to happen. I was just so lonely, so tired of feeling invisible. He made me feel special, like I mattered. You do matter, Graham said, and for a moment his voice broke. You matter to me. You matter to Mila. But apparently that's not enough. It could be, I said quickly. We could work on this, go to counselling, start over. No. The finality in his voice stopped me cold. We can't. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done, Ianthe. I'm done being made to feel like the villain in my own marriage. I'm done watching you lie to my face every day. I'm done pretending this is something we can fix. Panic set in. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Graham was supposed to fight for me, beg me to stay, promise to change. He wasn't supposed to just give up. You can't be serious. What about Mila? What about our family? I'm thinking about Mila. She deserves better than watching her parents tear each other apart. So that's it? You're just going to throw away 8 years of marriage because of a few text messages? Graham looked at me with something that might have been pity. Is that really all you think this is? A few text messages? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Without thinking, I glanced at it. A text from Riley. Miss you. When can I see you again? Graham saw it too. The last bit of hope died in his eyes. Pack a bag, he said quietly. I want you out tonight. You can't kick me out of my own home. Watch me. As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Colette. Ianthe, she said as soon as I answered, her voice tight with anger. We need to talk. Now. I can't right now. I'm in the middle of... I saw your texts, she interrupted. At Mum's house, weeks ago. I saw you texting some guy named Riley while you were sitting there trashing Graham. My world tilted. Colette, I can explain. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been cheating on your husband while making him out to be the bad guy to our entire family. I looked at Graham, who was watching me with that same sad resignation. I'll call you back, I told Colette, but she'd already hung up. That's when I heard it, the sound of the electronic lock on our front door changing. Graham had his phone in his hand, and I realized he'd just changed the access code. What did you do? I changed the locks, he said simply. Your code no longer works. You can't do that. This is my home too. Not anymore. I stared at him in disbelief. This quiet, steady man I'd been married to for 8 years had just systematically cut me out of my own life in the span of a single conversation. Graham, please, let's talk about this rationally. But he was already walking toward the bedroom, presumably to pack my things. I followed him, still trying to process what was happening. You're overreacting, I called after him. It was just a kiss. Nothing else happened. He stopped in the doorway and turned back to me. Just a kiss? Is that what you're going with? Something in his tone made my stomach drop. What do you mean? I mean, I have security footage from the warehouse, Ianthe. I have your phone records. I have bank statements showing cash withdrawals before every one of your lunch meetings. So please, tell me again how it was just a kiss. The room spun. How had he gotten all of that? How long had he been investigating me? I want to see a lawyer, I said weakly. Good idea, Graham replied. You're going to need one. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the hallway with a hastily packed suitcase, locked out of my own apartment, while my marriage crumbled around me. Sleeping in my car was not something I'd ever imagined I'd have to do, but there I was, parked in the lot behind Riley's warehouse at 2 a.m, trying to get comfortable in the driver's seat while figuring out how my life had fallen apart so quickly. I'd tried calling my mother, but the conversation hadn't gone the way I'd expected. You did what? Lila's voice was sharp with shock. Ianthe, please tell me Graham is lying. Mom, it's not what it sounds like. Graham has been impossible to live with, and I just needed someone who understood me. So you had an affair. It wasn't an affair. It was emotional support. Someone who listened to me. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Mom? I defended you, she said finally, her voice small and hurt. I sat at my dinner table and told that man he wasn't treating you right, and you were cheating on him the whole time. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that I owe Graham an apology, and I understand that my daughter is not the person I thought she was. She did hang up then, leaving me alone in my car with nothing but my racing thoughts and my phone. I texted Riley, "Can you talk?" Everything has fallen apart. His response took an hour. This is getting too complicated for me. I think we should take a break. A break. After everything I'd sacrificed, he wanted a break. I called Colette next, hoping my sister would be more understanding. "Are you insane?" were the first words out of her mouth. "Ianthe, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking that I deserved to be happy." "At the expense of your marriage? Your daughter? Your family's reputation? Since when do you care about Graham? You were laughing right along with me at Mum's house." "Because I believed you. I thought he was actually treating you badly. I had no idea you were sitting there lying to all of us while you were screwing around behind his back. I never slept with him." "Oh, please. Do you really think that matters? You had an emotional affair at minimum, and from what Graham's evidence suggests, it was probably more than that." "What evidence?" My voice cracked. "What has he told you?" "He hasn't told me anything. Mark has, though. Apparently, Graham's been documenting everything for weeks. Security footage, phone records, bank statements, witness statements. He's got you dead to rights, Ianthe." I felt sick. "Witness statements. Your co-worker saw you getting into Riley's van multiple times. The warehouse security guard remembers you visiting during work hours. Even Riley's supervisor noticed his van parked in unusual places during his lunch breaks. They were spying on me. They were protecting themselves. Graham hired a private investigator the minute he suspected something was wrong. He's got everything, Ianthe, everything." I hung up and immediately called Graham, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting him, begging him to talk to me, to let me explain, but the messages showed as delivered but never read. By morning, I was desperate. I drove to the dental clinic, hoping to at least maintain some normalcy, but Dr. Peterson called me into his office before I'd even sat down at my desk. "Ianthe, we need to discuss your employment." My heart sank. "What about it?" "I've received some concerning information about your conduct during work hours. Specifically, reports that you've been leaving the premises during your shift without permission and falsifying your time cards." "Dr. Peterson, I can explain." "I'm sure you can, but I'm afraid the explanation doesn't matter. I can't have employees lying about their whereabouts or using company time for personal matters. I'm going to have to let you go." So now I was unemployed, homeless, and estranged from my family. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot, crying and trying to figure out what to do next. That's when I saw the envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside were divorce papers, a restraining order, and a thick folder of evidence that made my stomach turn. Photos of me getting into Riley's van. Printouts of text messages I thought I'd deleted. Bank records showing the cash withdrawals Colette had mentioned. But the worst part was the custody petition. Graham was asking for full custody of Miller, citing my adultery, deception, and abandonment of parental responsibilities. There was also a note in Graham's careful handwriting. "Your belongings are in storage unit 247 on Elm Street. The key is taped under the bumper of your car. Do not contact me except through my attorney." I found the key exactly where he said it would be. Even in his anger, Graham was methodical and precise. That evening, I swallowed my pride and drove to my mother's house. But when I rang the doorbell, she barely opened the door. "I can't do this right now, Ianthe. Mum, please, I have nowhere else to go." "You should have thought of that before you destroyed your marriage." "I made a mistake, but I'm still your daughter." My daughter wouldn't have lied to my face while ruining a good man's reputation. She started to close the door, then stopped. "Mila called me yesterday. She wanted to know why Mommy doesn't live at home anymore. What am I supposed to tell her?" The door closed, leaving me alone on the porch of my childhood home. I drove back to the warehouse parking lot, my new home, and tried to process the magnitude of what I'd lost. My marriage, my job, my family's respect, my daughter's daily presence in my life. And for what? For a man who wanted to take a break the moment things got complicated. That night, as I tried to sleep in my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, the full weight of what I'd done. Not just to Graham, but to Mila, to my family, to myself. But it was too late for regrets. Tomorrow, I would have to face the legal consequences of my choices. The law office was intimidating in a way I hadn't expected. All dark wood and leather chairs, with diplomas and legal books lining the walls. I sat across from Graham's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells, while my own hastily hired lawyer shuffled through papers beside me. Graham sat at the far end of the conference table, looking composed and professional in a way that made my chest tight. He'd lost weight, I noticed, and there were dark circles under his eyes, but he seemed resolved, like he'd made peace with what was happening. "Let's begin," Patricia said, opening a thick file. "My client is seeking dissolution of marriage on grounds of adultery, along with primary custody of the minor child and division of assets according to the prenuptial agreement." "Prenuptial agreement?" My lawyer looked confused. "I wasn't aware there was a prenup." Patricia slid a document across the table. "Signed 8 years ago, witnessed and notarized. It clearly states that in the event of dissolution due to adultery, the unfaithful party forfeits claim to shared assets and faces restricted custody arrangements." I stared at the paper, my maiden name scrawled across the bottom in my own handwriting. I'd completely forgotten about signing it. Graham had presented it as a formality, something his father had insisted on, and I'd signed without really reading it, because I'd been so sure our marriage would last forever. "This is ridiculous," I said, finding my voice. "Graham is blowing this completely out of proportion. We're talking about a few conversations, and maybe a kiss or two. He's acting like I committed some unforgivable crime." Patricia opened another folder. "Mrs. Durbin, are you familiar with the concept of digital evidence?" She began laying out photographs, me getting into Riley's van, me and Riley holding hands in the warehouse parking lot, me leaving work early, timestamped security footage showing exactly when I'd left and when I'd returned. "These photos were taken over a 6-week period," Patricia continued, "during which time you met with Mr. Tran approximately 15 times, including during work hours when you were supposed to be at your job." "Meeting someone isn't illegal," I protested weakly. "No, but lying to your employer about your whereabouts is grounds for termination, which is exactly what happened, and lying to your spouse about your activities while conducting an extramarital relationship is grounds for divorce." She pulled out more documents, phone records showing hundreds of texts between Riley and me, bank statements showing cash withdrawals that coincided with our meetings, even receipts from a hotel that I'd forgotten about, the one afternoon when things had gone further than I'd admitted to anyone, including myself. "Furthermore," Patricia said, "my client has documented a pattern of emotional abuse and gaslighting. Mrs. Durbin repeatedly told family members and friends that Mr. Durbin was controlling, neglectful, and emotionally unavailable, all while conducting her affair. She used these false accusations to justify her behavior and gain sympathy from people who trusted her." I looked at Graham, expecting to see anger or vindication in his face. Instead, I saw something worse. Disappointment, I never meant for any of this to happen, I said directly to him. Graham, you have to believe me. I was confused and lonely, and I made some terrible choices, but I never wanted to hurt you or Mila. He looked at me for a long moment before responding. But you did hurt us, Ianthe. You hurt us both, and you did it while making me out to be the villain. You let our daughter think I was the reason Mommy was unhappy. I was trying to protect her. From what? From the truth? From the fact that her mother was having an affair. The word hit me like a slap. I'd been avoiding it, even in my own mind, but that's what it was. An affair. Not a friendship, not emotional support, not a momentary lapse in judgment. An affair. I want to see Mila, I said, changing tactics. Whatever problems you and I have, she's my daughter too. Graham's attorney answered before he could. Supervised visitation only, pending psychological evaluation and completion of a parenting class. The court is concerned about the child's emotional well-being given the circumstances of the separation. Supervised visitation. I stood up so quickly my chair fell backward. She's my daughter. You can't keep her from me. We're not keeping her from you, Patricia said calmly. We're ensuring her visits with you are conducted in a safe, neutral environment until it's clear that your personal issues won't negatively impact her emotional development. My lawyer finally spoke up. My client is willing to enter marriage counseling. Perhaps we can work out a reconciliation. No. Graham's voice was quiet but firm. There won't be any counseling. This marriage is over. I sank back into my chair, the reality of the situation finally hitting me. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't Graham trying to scare me into changing my behavior. This was him methodically, legally, permanently removing me from his life. What about the pregnancy? I blurted out. The room went dead silent. Graham's face went white, and his attorney looked confused. What pregnancy? Patricia asked. I hadn't planned to tell them like this. I'd only found out 3 days ago, and I'd been trying to figure out how to use it to my advantage. But now, desperate and cornered, I played my last card. I'm pregnant, I announced. 6 weeks along. Graham stared at me in shock. Is it? I don't know, I admitted. It could be yours. We were still intimate sometimes, even after things got bad. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Graham and I hadn't been intimate in over 2 months, and I knew exactly when this pregnancy had started. That afternoon at the hotel with Riley, the one time I'd let things go too far. Patricia was already calculating. We'll need a paternity test as soon as it's safe to perform one. If the child is my client's, we'll adjust the custody arrangement accordingly. If it's not... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Graham stood up abruptly. I need some air. He left the room and I could hear his footsteps echoing down the hallway. When he came back 10 minutes later, his eyes were red, but his voice was steady. If the baby is mine, I'll support it financially and seek appropriate custody. If it's not, I want nothing to do with either of you beyond what's required for Mila's well-being. The finality in his voice broke something inside me. Graham, please, we can work this out. We can be a family again. No, Ianthe, we can't. You made sure of that. Patricia laid out the final terms. Graham would get primary custody of Mila, with me receiving supervised visitation every other weekend. He would keep the apartment and most of our shared assets, as stipulated in the prenup. I would receive a small settlement, enough to get back on my feet, but nothing more. And if the paternity test shows the baby isn't Mr. Durbin's, my lawyer asked, then Mrs. Durbin's settlement will be reduced to cover the costs of this proceeding, and all custody arrangements will be re-evaluated based on her fitness as a parent. I signed the papers with shaking hands, each signature feeling like another nail in the coffin of my old life. As we left the law office, Graham walked beside me to the parking garage. For a moment, I thought he might say something, offer some small kindness or hope for the future. Instead, he handed me an envelope. The results of Riley's paternity test, he said quietly. I stared at him in confusion. What do you mean? I mean, I had him served with papers yesterday. If you're going to claim he's the father, he has a right to know. And if he's not willing to step up, then you're going to be raising that baby alone. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a court order requiring Riley to submit to paternity testing, along with a copy of his response. Riley had filed a motion to terminate any parental rights or responsibilities, stating that any relationship with me had been casual and temporary, and that he wanted no involvement in any resulting complications. He'd thrown me away as easily as I'd thrown away my marriage. Standing in that parking garage, holding papers that represented the complete destruction of everything I'd once had, I finally understood the full scope of what I'd lost. Not just Graham and Mila, but my family's respect, my job, my home, my future. And the man I'd risked it all for couldn't run away fast enough. Graham got into his car and drove away without looking back, leaving me alone with the consequences of my choices. As I sat in my car, my home, my bedroom, my entire world now, I realized that this was what rock bottom looked like, but it was too late for regrets. The papers were signed, the damage was done, and tomorrow I would have to figure out how to build a life from the ashes of the one I'd destroyed. 6 months later, I was living in a studio apartment across town, working part-time at a call center, and raising Riley's daughter alone. The paternity test had confirmed what I'd already known, and Riley had legally severed all ties before she was even born. Graham had remarried, a kind woman named Sarah who treated Mila like her own daughter. They lived in a house now with a yard and a dog, and when I saw them at Mila's school events, they looked like the family I'd always wanted but had been too selfish to appreciate when I had it. Mila called Sarah Mom Sarah, and me Mom Ianthe, and while it broke my heart every time, I knew I had no right to complain. I'd made my choices, and now I was living with the consequences. The baby, Emma, was beautiful and healthy, but every time I looked at her, I was reminded of everything I'd lost for a few moments of feeling desired and appreciated. She would grow up without knowing her father, just like I was growing up without the family I'd destroyed. My mother had eventually forgiven me, though our relationship would never be the same. Colette spoke to me now, but carefully, like she was always waiting for me to lie to her again. Mark had moved closer to Graham and Mila, stepping into the grandfather role with enthusiasm, while treating me with polite indifference when our paths crossed. I'd gotten what I thought I wanted, freedom from a marriage I'd convinced myself was suffocating me. But freedom, I learned, was just another word for being completely alone with the consequences of your choices. As I sat in my small apartment, feeding Emma and watching Mila's school play, on a video Graham had graciously shared, I finally understood the difference between being appreciated and being loved. Riley had appreciated me, my looks, my attention, the excitement of a secret affair, but Graham had loved me, enough to try to save our marriage, enough to document my betrayal methodically, rather than fly into a rage, enough to ensure I could still see our daughter even after everything I'd done to hurt him. I'd thrown away love for appreciation, substance for excitement, and a family for a fantasy. And now I was living with the consequences, one lonely day at a time.